What is the cost of racism in America? Now, there's a billion different ways that you can quantify it, and there's a lot of great research and scholarly output to do that. But let's talk about one particular way. What is the economic cost to America for continuing the centuries-long history of racial economic inequality? So a study has looked into it, and here's what they found. Black workers have lost $113 billion in potential wages just over the past 2 decades because they couldn't get a college degree. That's not everything. That's not all of the economic inequality generated by racism. That's just specifically for 2 decades, the more difficulty getting a college degree. The housing market has lost $218 billion in sales because black applicants couldn't get home loans. About $13 trillion in business revenue never flowed into the economy because black entrepreneurs couldn't access bank loans. The US could have $5 trillion in gross domestic product over just the next 5 years if those gaps and others were closed today, according to the study. That is amazing. And for many Americans, they'll think, that's a cost that I'm willing to pay. I like the way that things have worked. I like the status quo. But these figures are amazing, Rashad.
They are. There's a sociologist, I forget his name, but he made this calculation. And he said 92% of the social ills we face in America would evaporate if this country could do one thing: make sure every American had a job that paid the bills. Well, that's basically your end product, right? Having a job that pays the bills. What's behind that? The statistics that you just named: having access to affordable higher education, being skilled and trained in a particular industry, where you have all of these barriers to get to that point. And then in the process of you getting to this point of higher education, being trained, you're spending money, you're taking out loans, and you're getting degreed in areas that don't want to hire you. And so you're taking other jobs. Now you fall behind on paying back your student loan. You find you a honey, right? You got your boo thing. You have a child now. You're trying to get a house. You can't get a house. Why can't you get a house? Because the industry that you are skilled in didn't hire you, so you're working at a job that pays you well under what you deserve. You're not making a livable wage, and because of the student loan debt that has accrued, you can't get a house now. It is a cause and effect relationship from day one, all right? From day one. And it particularly has an impact on every person of color. And my second doctoral degree, John, is actually in higher education access for African-American students.
Yeah, you're totally right. All these things tie together and they produce this outcome, which, like, in such a perverted way, racists support a system that stops people of a variety of races getting to the point that they say they want everyone to be like, to lead this sort of life. And then they hate these groups for not having access to those resources, for not owning their homes, for not whatever, like all of those things. It's so sick, the world that they work to produce, they say they hate. And I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit, because I'm gonna summarize a few more numbers here. Federal Reserve data shows that white households' net worth grew 43% to $61,200 between 1995 and 2016, so over a 20-year period, while it remained flat at $35,400 for black families. In terms of home ownership, back in 2019, 44% of black households owned their homes, compared with 74% of white households. So some people will look at those numbers and just think, well, how do you get to this? I would just gesture to the country. This is how you get to this. Our policies that have to do with access to loans, to educational opportunity, to all of these things, that is how you produce this. And if you go back to the first graphic that we showed you, it is obviously hurting black Americans, that they are the principal, those who are suffering as a result of this. But it also has an economic impact on the country. How much could everyone collectively benefit, of all races, if we were able to get past this problem? But we've apparently decided that it's just not worth it.
Yeah, we have concluded, and when I say we, I'm talking about this country. This country has concluded that there just must be a permanent underclass in order for their version of capitalism to survive. The truth is, capitalism can survive without a permanent underclass. The only issue would be that those that are making the absolute most money They may take somewhat of a profit loss, but we can all rise on this ship together. Equity is the conversation, not equality. And I actually teach a course at the university called Dr. King as a social change agent. And I highlight Dr. King after 1964. We don't like to talk about Dr. King after 1964 because after 64, King did an interview and he was asked about his I Have a Dream speech. And he said during this interview, and anyone can pull it up on YouTube, he said that speech is now a nightmare. And he talked about how equality is a courtesy. And he wanted what's called genuine equality. And he gave an example. He said it's one thing to sit where you want to sit at a restaurant. It's another thing to own the restaurant. He was talking about equitable principles. That's why the Fair Housing Act was such a big deal. That was about equitable principles and having a piece of the American pie beyond just the courtesy. And let's talk about, just for a moment, the entire issue of the Civil Rights Act, gave an influx of money to white America like you haven't seen. Okay, because black individuals took their green dollars and spent it at white establishments. It was a win for white America. Now we need a win also for black America. And I don't besmirch the Civil Rights Act of 1964 because it did allow people who were discriminated against because they were black to sue major companies and get rewarded, and policies were changed. So it definitely had an impact. But let's be clear, the acts that were passed still had some level of benefit to the white male-dominated social structure.
100%, 100%. Again, so glad to have you. You know
this
stuff. That's great.
I love the show.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And as you're saying that, I brought up, I want to watch that interview after this. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.